Hello everyone, and welcome to this short demonstration, I guess, or introduction into how to pronounce ancient Egyptian words. This isn't a sort of formal lecture, it's more of an informal conversation between myself and Dr. Joyce Tilsley.
Hello.
Who, to show that not even Egyptologists agree, because we tend to pronounce some things differently.
We do.
And prefer different spellings. It's one of the problems that students face a lot, I think, with Egyptian, especially royal names.
I think it's something that students new to the subject find very difficult.
Yes.
They think there must be a right way of writing Egyptian names, personal names, royal names, geographical names, and there really isn't. There are lots of things, lots of possibilities open to you. So feel quite confident. If you're accustomed to use a certain way, that's probably okay.
I think it's fine. The key is consistency.
Absolutely,
throughout
absolutely.
an essay. And I mean, I would also say we'll come to some names where a specific variant of that name is very old-fashioned, for instance. And it might be an idea to avoid those simply because they're not really used that much in kind of common Egyptological literature, so you may as well avoid
Yes, if you're using an old-fashioned name, it makes your work seem old-fashioned, doesn't it?
It does.
Like you're not up to date.
Yeah. So we've picked some examples from the different... we're going chronologically here, so let's start with the Old Kingdom. So we've got the first pyramid builder, Djoser.
Or Zoser.
Or Soser. I would use Djoser.
I'd sort of... Djoser, I guess. A sort of blurring.
Yeah, I think Soser with a Z, I don't see it around a lot anymore.
No, it used to be quite popular.
Yeah, it's very... Was it Breasted, I think, that used it in everything? It tends to be the kind of turn of the century.
Yes. So it lingers on in old publications.
Yeah. Some other pyramid builders, we've got Khufu / Cheops, Khafre / Chephren, and Menkaura.
Or I would say Khephren.
And Menkaura / Mycerinus.
Yeah, and obviously here the first version, the first variant is the more Egyptianized form of the name. The second is the Greek form of the name.
Yeah.
And it used to be very popular to use the Greek form of these names in writing. That's now considered to be very old-fashioned.
Yes.
So while it's not entirely wrong if you do use Cheops or Cheops in your writing, people would question why you weren't using the Egyptian name.
It would be an odd choice.
It would be odd.
I think.
We've really included it here because you might find it in the literature again. If you're reading things written at the turn of last century, you might come across it.
It is also, I think it lingered more in the French literature than it did in the German or the English literature. So it's also sometimes a little bit based on nationality.
Yes, so a lot of these are, aren't they?
Yeah.
Hetepheres, Queen.
I think she's mainly included because some students write a lot about her, but it's also difficult to pronounce. But it's a fantastic illustration of a fundamental principle of Egyptian names, which is that we have really no vowels, or we have certainly very few vowels. And as you can see from this name, all of the E's are connector vowels that we've put in. Really what we have from the hieroglyphs is the H, the T, the PH, the R, and the S. Everything else is our interpretation. She might have been called Hotapurus, for instance, something like that. We don't know, or Hitaperis, but we simply don't know. So in this case, we've just added the E's, but that's the case for a lot of these names, that we don't have a lot of the vowels, so we're kind of guesstimating with a lot of
which is why you can't be wrong if you decided to call her Hotapurus.
Yes,
I
would advise against it because it would confuse everyone to
Nobody would know what you were writing about.
I mean, I really one that's been sort of in the literature recently is the term Necha, God, where of course we've put in the E's. And there is a belief that it might actually have been which you can tell from Coptic, that it might have been pronounced something like Nochur. But I think if you start writing that, everyone is going to be very confused about what you're actually saying.
Yes.
So moving into the Middle Kingdom, Montuhotep or Mentuhotep.
They're just different ways of saying the name of the god, aren't they?
Yes, Montu or Mentu.
And it really doesn't matter. But again, be consistent.
I don't see Montuhotep a lot, to be honest. It's not the most common, I think. The Mentuhotep.
See, again, because I'm older than you, I'm more accustomed to that.
Yeah.
But I would always use Mentuhotep.
Yeah, me too.
But again, be consistent. Don't use one in one sentence and then the other one. A thing that happens a lot with student essays is because you're reading different sources and the different sources use different variants. Like when you're grading the essay, you sometimes find that the student in one paragraph clearly reading something by, say, Breasted is using Mentuhotep, and then in the next paragraph clearly reading something by, say, Gardner. writing about the same person, they suddenly become Montuhotep.
Yeah. So it's the consistency again.
Yes. No matter which sources you're using, you must in your writing be consistent.
Yeah. Amenemhat, we've included mainly because I think students they tend to be a little bit daunted by the name Amenemhat. It's
I'd
difficult.
say Amenemhat.
Yeah, it's the pronunciation. I think the spelling is pretty obvious, but it's the pronunciation of it.
Either is fine.
Either is fine. Senvosret, Senusret, or Sesostris.
You see, I would say Senwosret because to me it's the simplest.
Me too.
But any of those variants are
Sesostris is really popular in French literature.
Yes.
For instance, and still is. But yeah, I would stick with Senvosret as well. Sobek Nofru or Neferu Sobek.
Yes, you find both. Again, we have a queen here, and people haven't decided which way around her name.
This is quite interesting because both are correct in a sense, because this is down to something in hieroglyphs called honorific transposition, where sometimes you tend to put the name of the god first, even if it was not pronounced first in the actual pronunciation, but it tends to be pronounced first in the writing. So Neferu Sobek, beautiful is Sobek. The first one, Sobek, has been put in the front of the name, and the Noferu or Neferu is at the end, and the other one it's written the way that it's believed to be actually pronounced, Neferu Sobek. So, but the thing is, we don't always know when something is honorific transposition and when something is just written in a different way.
And it's interesting because she has a sister called Ta Noferu, or Neferu Ta, and quite often you'll find in writings that the author will use one form for one sister and the other form for the other sister.
So one sister has the honorific transposition, the other one doesn't. Yeah,
which to me, again, is inconsistent. If you're going to do it for both.
Yes, because it shows a lack of understanding of the honorific transposition principle. So moving into the New Kingdom, this is one you should be familiar with. Hatshepsut.
Yes. When I wrote my book many, many years ago, I used the CH, Hatshepsut. They pronounce the same. Because that was popular at the time.
Yes.
There was a bit of a discussion with the publisher who sent it out to reviewers, and they said you could use either.
Yeah.
Almost overnight, since I published that book, that variant in the English language has disappeared, and it's always now spelt with an SH, which I think is probably closer to the Egyptian. It's very unfortunate because it means that my book essentially has what is many perceived to be the wrong spelling of the name on it.
I suppose it makes it more difficult to come up in word searches on Amazon and things like that.
Google it. On the other hand, it makes it quite distinctive. I wish I could change it, but obviously I can't change the book title now. That would cause even greater confusion.
Yeah.
But it's a clear example of how fashions in names change.
Yes.
This was perfectly acceptable 30 years ago, and it's not common now. But again, I think in German, I think that would be more acceptable.
More common. Yeah. Then we have Thutmoses, Tutmos, Jehutimos, and many other variants. I tend to go with Thutmoses.
I tend to go with Tuthmosis.
I think it doesn't really matter. The Jehutimos is basically just Thoth or Tut is a kind of more I guess Greek inspired way of writing the name of the god Thoth. In Egyptian he's Jehuti. So Jehutimos, I suppose, is a kind of it's closer to the Egyptian original. In the way that the Old Kingdom names like Khufu is closer to the Egyptian original than Cheops, but here it's the other way around. I think most people prefer to use the Greek.
Yes, they do. It's inconsistent actually, because we've just said don't use the Greek, and this name is the exception.
And I think that's the thing. These are not hard and fast rules in a sense. This is there was never a conference where we all sat down and decided on what things should be named. There are fashions, there are preferences that don't necessarily make sense. It's just which is more.
Yes.
I suppose if we were going to be completely, sort of slavish about it, we would write transliteration. We would simply write the Egyptian phonetic pronunciation of the name, but that would be quite messy.
It would be messy, and it would be not very good if you're ever writing for a popular audience.
It would be useless for writing for the public audience. If we just put hieroglyphs in everywhere, it wouldn't be very kind. Amenhotep, Amenophis.
Yeah, Amenophis to me sounds very old-fashioned. That is the Greek variant.
Yes.
So I would always use Amenhotep.
So here we do the complete opposite of the Thutmoses. It's very strange. Akhenaten. We've got really all of the Amarna rulers: Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, and Smenkhare.
The interesting one here is Smenkhare. People quite often miss out the middle spelling of it. They get it wrong, so it's Smenkhare.
Yes.
The one that people really fall down is actually the name of the city, Amarna.
Yes.
Many people think it's Armana,
yeah.
A-R-M, and it's not. It's Amarna.
I used to think that Karnak was Karnak with an RK at the end, but similar, that you kind of add in this extra letter.
I don't think it helps actually with Amarna that one of the first editions of the Oxford History of Ancient Egypt had Amarna spelt wrongly as a running header.
Oh, no.
Yeah, yes,
dear.
but I don't think it does anymore.
Tutankhamun. I guess it's a matter of preference.
I say Tutankhamun because to me it's the simplest, but a lot of people say Tutankhamun.
Yeah, me as well. I
put men on the end because I use Amen for the god, and I use Amenhotep, and I try to be consistent. But again, a lot of people are inconsistent, so they'll call the god Amun, but we'll say Amenhotep.
Yeah, I tend to do that as well. I use Amun, but Amenhotep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, Tutankhamen with an en on the end is what Howard Carter used.
Yes.
And it used to be what people used a lot more. But again, even the Ashmolean Museum now, who curate Howard Carter's records, now starting to use UN rather than the en.
So moving on to places, we've got Abydos.
I say Abydos. A lot of people say Abydos. I think Abydos sounds closer to the modern Arabic, I think.
I think so, Abydos,
But I would always say Abydos.
Deir el-Bahri.
I say Deir el-Bahri.
Yeah, which I think yours is closer to the Arabic in this case. Dendera, I've heard it pronounced.
Or Dendera.
Dendera.
I would say Dendera.
Yeah, me too. Dendera. Dendera, sadly, I don't know, it's an odd...
Again, it doesn't matter how... Here, it's not really spelling that's
it's a pronunciation.
It's a pronunciation.
Yeah, pronunciation. Yes. I would actually just include, before we go on to the gods, a New Kingdom name, Ramses.
Oh yes, Ramesses.
Is it Ramesses or Ramses?
Well, I think if you're American, it's Ramses.
Yes.
But if you're British and European, it's Ramesses.
Yeah.
And I think Ramesses with the extra E in it is closer to the Egyptian.
I think so, yeah. And it's also, because of course we're both Liverpool alumni, and Liverpool is quite militant about Ramesses.
Yes.
And of course, Liverpool had Ken Kitchen, the scholar on the Ramesside period, so I think that's also influenced this Ramesses over Ramses in the British scholarly literature, at least.
But because everything is acceptable, and we wouldn't generally on the course, American spelling is not really expected. You're expected to use British spelling.
Yeah.
But in this case of the name, we would accept Ramses because all variants are acceptable.
It's still correct. As long as it's consistent. As long as you stick to one. It just sounds wrong to me. It does. It sounds too short.
Yes, because we're not accustomed to it.
No, I suppose we should call him Ramesu. Because that he did change his name sort of halfway through from Ramesu to Ramesses, didn't he? Update his name. And then gods. So we've got Re and Ra.
And I once heard someone give a lecture who said Re.
Re?
I'd never heard of Re. I had no idea. Actually, it took me about 10 minutes into the lecture to work out what he was talking about.
Makes very little sense.
The litany of Re. And I'm thinking, what's this?
Oh, that makes
something
no
I've
sense
never heard of. Well, no, it doesn't.
I tend to go with Ra because in the hieroglyphs, Ra is usually spelled out with the one consonant sign R, and the one consonant sign the ayin, which is pronounced as a short R sound in English. So I think as it is actually written in the hieroglyphs, I think that might be closer to the Egyptian.
I've tended to use Re, but I'm tending more to the Ra now because it seems to be more popular.
Yeah, I think
more recognizable.
Things go up and down in fashion, don't they? And we've already talked about Amen, Amun, Amon.
Now, I always use Amen, but I've actually had people come back to me and say, "Is this a typing mistake, a spelling mistake?
Really?
Did you mean this?"
I don't. I think with me, sometimes it even depends what I'm writing. When I write articles, I tend maybe more to favor Amun, but when I write for the public, I tend to favor Amen. But I don't know.
There's one oddity that has popped up. When I use Amen, I've had several people asking me if this name is connected to the word Amen, which we get on the end of a prayer, which is entirely different.
Yes.
A completely different language. Completely different meaning.
Yes.
They're not connected in any way, but because they look the same.
Yeah, people have made the connection.
Made a connection that doesn't exist.
And of course, again, returning to the hieroglyphs, he shouldn't really be any of that because his name is spelled out, because he actually has a vowel in his name. It's Iman. Or there's a vowel missing. It might be Imon or Imun.
There's so much. If we were starting from scratch, knowing what we know now, we would do it differently, wouldn't we? It would be very different.
Yeah. The last one, I would say tar.
I would say tar, and I would say Ptolemy's as well.
Yes.
I was brought up to do that, to say that the P is silent, but a lot of people these days are pronouncing the P, so they would say Ptah and Ptolemy. And I've had Greek students who said that they would pronounce the P.
Yes, I actually got told off. My fiance works on Ptolemaic coins, and she tells me off for saying Ptolemaic rather than Ptolemaic.
But to me, it's natural to say. I don't know if that's just a British thing.
I don't know. It might. I'm not sure.
I'm Danish.
And Danish, I suppose. Yeah, I don't know. But I think the key is really be consistent.
Yes,
stick with one writing.
Absolutely. What I hope we've demonstrated in this chat is that Nikki and I don't do the same things, and we haven't even done the same things over time. We occasionally change style. Yeah. As Nikki says, be consistent in your essays. Think about it. Decide what you're going to use, and then always use that. And you'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely.